Welcome to the Nurse Shark Academy Show, a Baxter Professional Services production. Welcome to the Nurse Shark Academy Show, where we're experts in nursing and experts in business. I'm Tina Baxter, your host. The Nurse Shark Academy Show highlights nurse business owners and others in the healthcare field who promote entrepreneurship. Today's guest is Dr. LaToya Lockett. In today's episode, how one nurse never gave up on her dreams.
So I didn't really emphasize the detour, but I became a teenage mom. So I was pregnant and had my son at 14 years old. I was in 10th grade. And the dream of going back, leaving the island and going to school for medical school was detoured. I wouldn't call it a mistake. I still think it's the best thing I've done in my life. So I stayed on the island, raised my son, and went to nursing school at the same time.
And I think that's important to hear because a lot of times people, particularly women, will detour their life because of family obligations and things like that and think that you can't do something, right? It's, no longer in the cards, and it may be something different. And this is something I encourage my nieces in particular. I said, just because you may at this time, be married, have kids and things like that, doesn't mean you have to give up your dream. You can still do whatever you need to do. So I want to encourage some of our listeners that may be the younger generation, and maybe you've had a setback or something like in your life. Don't put your dreams on hold. You can go for your dreams and still figure it out. And it may look differently than what you thought it was going to look like, but you can still accomplish great things. So don't count yourself out before counting yourself in. Nurses, are you burnt out, frustrated, looking for something new? Are you looking for more? Nurses, are you ready to feel the sun? You will dream big and expand your consciousness as an entrepreneur. Your nursing license is your key to freedom. Join the Nurse Shark Academy at thenursesharkacademy.biz today. Hello and welcome to the Nurse Shark Academy Show, where we're experts in nursing and experts in business. I'm Tina Baxter, your host. The Nurse Shark Academy Show highlights nurse business owners and others in the healthcare field who promote entrepreneurship. Today's guest is Dr. LaToya Lockett. Dr. Lockett is an accomplished emergency nurse, educator, and healthcare leader with more than 25 years of experience. Originally from St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands, she brings the resilience, community-centered values, and global perspective of her island upbringing to every facet of her work. Welcome to the show, Dr. Lockett.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here. And as I always like to ask every nurse when they come on the show, what made you become a nurse?
That's always a very interesting question for me. So as you mentioned, I am originally from St. Thomas, United States Virgin Islands. That's where I grew up. And when I was a young child, my grandmother was sick, and she came and lived with my mom and I. And one of the things that she had was diabetes. So I quickly learned, even as a young child, I was about 6, 7, maybe about 7 to 10 years old. I learned how to give her insulin, how to pull open the syringe, and I just enjoyed taking care of her, helping her with her baths, and help feeding her and those type of things. I always knew I wanted to do something in taking care of people. I remember as a small kid, I always used to say I wanted to be a pediatrician. But that dream changed. I had a little detour in my life. And instead of going to pursue the physician route, I went ahead and went into nursing school and have not regretted it a day in my life. I love being a nurse.
You know what? That's so interesting because a lot of us, when we were kids, we think, oh, I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a nurse. And some of these things change, right? We think we want to start in one area, but sometimes God, the universe, has a different path for us. And so I love that you taking care of your grandmother was an inspiration of you to take care of others. Where did you go to school?
So I went to school back home in the Virgin Islands at the University of the Virgin Islands. They have a 4-year BSN program. So I didn't really emphasize the detour, but I became a teenage mom. So I was pregnant and had my son at 14 years old. I was in 10th grade, and the dream of going back, leaving the island and going to school for medical school was detoured. I wouldn't call it a mistake. I still think it's the best thing I've done in my life. So I stayed on the island, raised my son, and went to nursing school at the same time.
And I think that's important to hear because a lot of times, um, people, particularly women, will detour their life because of family obligations and things like that, and think that you can't do something, right? It's,
Right.
no longer in the cards, and it may be something different. Um, and this is something I encourage my nieces, in particular. I said, just because you may at this time, have, be married, have kids, and things like that, doesn't mean you have to give up your dream. You
Very.
can still do whatever you need to do. So I want to encourage some of our listeners that maybe the younger generation, and maybe you've had a setback or something like in your life. Don't put your dreams on hold. You can go for your dreams and still figure it out. And it may look differently than what you thought it was going to look like, but you can still accomplish great things. So don't count yourself out before counting yourself in. So,
Absolutely, I agree.
so what was it like going to school? Going to nursing school. What was your favorite part of nursing school?
Oh, absolutely, the clinicals. Um, I mean, of course, the classroom setting set us up for clinicals, but I looked forward to the clinicals, going to the hospitals, going to the nursing homes. I just enjoyed the patient contact. So I immediately knew that this was for me. Even now in my career as being a academia professor and a business owner, I still work in the emergency department. I work a full-time night shift job because I just love patient contact. A lot of people ask me, why are you still doing bedside? And my answer is always is, this is why I became a nurse. Is
Hmm.
because I love taking care of people. So looking back at nursing school, yes, I've always been an A student. So the classroom stuff never intimidated me. It just never excited me because it was not very challenging. I could listen in class and do very well in class academic wise, but the learning how to take care of people and meeting new people was definitely my highlight of nursing school.
And I think that's so important because I think what happens for nursing students is they fail to sometimes tie what they're learning in the classroom to what they're actually doing in the field. And how do you, as a professor, how do you bridge that gap for your students?
So the where I teach is more I teach at the doctoral program for Northern Kentucky University. So we've surpassed that, but I also I'm a mentor for some. If someone reach out to me, I love mentoring, especially the new grads or those in nursing school. And even as I teach in my business, I tend to make things practical and make it more realistic. I think sometimes we have so much theory and we don't connect it to real life. Sometimes
Mhm.
people don't are not able to connect. So even when I'm teaching basic CPR to the church or I'm teaching ACLS to the ER nurses, I bring my experience from the bedside to say, hey, yes, we have to learn these skills, but they truly save lives. So it's that connection.
One of the things that, for me, that light bulb moment in nursing school was when you can practice something in the simulation lab, right? And then you go into the field and you actually put it into practice,
Yes.
and you do it on a live person. And it's that experience, I think, that makes you a better nurse, is having those clinical experiences, those patient care experiences. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, a lot of those nursing students didn't get that opportunity to work with a real patient before they graduated. So I know that some of them are struggling right now. So when you're mentoring a new nurse that may have not had as much patient contact, what are some of the pieces of advice you would give them?
So one of the things when I have new grads that, especially new to the ER, and they call me and they say I had this case, I always encourage them to look it up. So use the emergency nurses manual and look that up. So I had one that had a patient with acute heart failure, flash pulmonary edema, and she was
Mhm.
like, "I don't understand how I missed this," and she was going through all the emotions. And I said, "Okay, so the patient is fine. Patient was admitted. Now let's look in the book and look up the causes, the signs and symptoms, and just kind of look. You get the practical, the didactics." So when she did that, she called me and she was like, "Dr. Lockett, I can't believe it. My patient had all the signs and symptoms of what the book is saying. But now I know the next time she get a patient like that, she'll never forget it." So that has
Exactly.
shown her skills for that
Mhm.
specific patient. So I tell all of them, even if you take care of a patient and you weren't 100% sure or understood what was happening, you're never going to stop learning. Nothing is wrong is going back and looking it up, because now that you can connect actual patient symptoms to what's in the textbook, you'll never forget it.
Mhm. Yes. And I think that's so important because a lot of times we're used to with modern healthcare, the algorithms and following, these things. And now we got AI introduced into clinical practice. And I feel that sometimes we may lose that nuance that of going back and just doing our research. It's all
Yeah,
part of being a nurse. You can't just like, oh well, I didn't understand it and move on. It's your job to understand what happened.
correct. I agree.
Yeah. So you started out and you got your nursing degree. What was your first job as a brand new grad?
That's so interesting. Yes. So my first new job, so I got my degree back home, St. Thomas Virgin Islands, and I also received a scholarship. So I received a scholarship from one of the organizations there on the island. So with the scholarship, I had to work a year at the local hospital. And at the time, I don't know if it's still happening because that was 25 plus years ago, but at the time, all new grads had to go to med surg. So straight out of nursing school, I worked on the med surg unit. And I did that for exactly 365 days. I met my obligation. It was definitely an interesting experience as a new grad working on med surg, and 3 months, I would say, as a new grad into it. I came in one morning and they said, "We're moving you to night shift and you're going to be the night shift charge nurse." Which to me, looking back now as a leader, sounds insane to have a new grad that's been on the floor for 3 months to be the charge nurse. But I enjoyed it. That's where I found that I was a good leader. So apparently, my manager at the time was either desperate or or she saw some type of potential in me. So that was definitely my first job and my first leadership type role as a charge nurse down there in the night shift in the ER. And my first night shift job when I still work nights. So definitely the foundation of who I am today.
Well, I have to tell you, I know for a fact for my employer, my first nursing job was on the psychiatry unit, and it was desperation because I was on in orientation on second shift and became charge nurse on third shift. Pretty much, the next morning. So
Next morning, oh my.
next morning, I had to stay and do a double. Yeah, because there was nobody else to stay. So there you go. You're charge nurse. And by the way, you got two new admissions coming in on severely detoxing patients. Good luck with that.
Wow. Well, I would like to say that I think it was probably also they saw something in us, because there were other new grads that started the same time with me. But I was like, why me? At the time I felt it was punishment. But now I
Mhm.
look back and, I'm like, there's a reason why they picked me. So there probably was a reason why they
Yeah.
picked you. Whatever.
Yep. So, um, you went to Med Surge, did your tour. I did that as a nurse tech and knew that wasn't for me, so I just jumped right to psychiatry. But where did you go from there?
So, like I said, I did my 365 days, and then I always tell the story. In 366, I was on the plane to Raleigh, North Carolina. I had a really good friend that actually I went to school with, Claire, and she had moved from the islands to North Carolina. She was there through the military. She had left nursing school and joined the military. So
Hmm.
I actually visited her a couple Christmases, and I kind of like North Carolina. It was it was it was a good transition from moving from a small island to the mainland, right?
Hmm.
So I can't imagine moving from St. Thomas to a big city like New York. Hands off to people that do that. But Raleigh, North Carolina, it was just still small, hometown enough that
Hmm.
it still gave me that homey community like feeling, which was important to me. So the Christmas before my 365 days were over, I actually went to visit her. And during my Christmas break, I had applied to multiple hospitals in the area because I knew I wanted to get off the island. And I I got three job interviews, and before I left, I got three job offers. Um, Two of them was back on the med surg unit because that was my only experience, and it was almost a year. And the other one was at a hospital, Wake Med Hospital, and they had just started to create what they call a nurse externship program where they were hiring experienced nurses but new to the ER, but you came in as an extern. So you came in at a lower rate than an RN coming into the ER, but they trained you for 6 months to be an ER nurse. And just when I was having an interview, they was like, "Hey, we're starting this program. Are you interested in coming?" And I was like, "Huh, I knew I don't want med surge, but I'm not sure what I wanted." And I said, "I'll try it." So I accepted the position and have not left the ER ever since.
Okay, you know what? When I just was speaking to a group of high school students that they're interested in healthcare fields and careers, and I was telling them about nursing and my nursing journey. And one of the things I said, just be open to opportunities that come to you. You never know where they will take you, and you'll find yourself exactly where you need to be.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And that's a true testimony for that. Then I knew I didn't want a med surge, but I didn't know what I wanted. And having that opportunity to work in a level 1 trauma center I still consider myself as a baby nurse. I would tell people I don't even know how to do an EKG, much less read one. And here I am now teaching EKG classes. So it was definitely a transformation for me.
So, what made you decide to go back to graduate school? How did you make that decision?
Okay, do you want the clean version? So the hospital I worked at in Raleigh, North Carolina, Wake Med Hospital, they had just started when I was working there. So I worked there for a total of 10 years. So I started off as the extern, and then I became one of their charge nurses, night shift. And then
Hmm.
I became one of their supervisors, educators. And I left there when I was as a supervisor educator when I moved to Houston. But the facility is really good on staff development. So at the time, they had just established a relationship with Pfeiffer University. And they were asking staff members, is anyone interested in getting your master's degree? You can apply. It was very competitive. They only had 10 slots. And the hospital had the relationship with the university where, like, the professor in the evenings, 2 days a week, would come to the hospital and we would have class in the conference room. So we
Oh,
didn't have
wow.
to. Yeah, it was amazing. I hope they still do it. So we didn't have to go on campus. They came to us. Um, I was not interested at all. um, at the time, I was very much single and very much getting myself into a lot of trouble. So I had mentioned it to my mom, and my mom was like, "Why don't you apply? And if you apply, I'll help pay for it." So I applied. We had it right. We all had to go. Everyone that applied had to go into the conference room, and they gave you a blank sheet of paper and a blurb, and you had to write an essay.
Hmm.
Right there, then you had an hour to just write, and you're writing. You're not even typing. and they looked at, your passion, your grammar, your structure, all this stuff. And I just kind of laissez faire, I wrote it because I was like, if I get in, I get in. If I don't, I don't. And I just wrote, and I was one of the 10 selected. So God had a plan for me for sure. Um, and the program was a MHA MBA program, dual program. It was a very, very, very good program. I was in there with physicians. I had a couple of physicians in there that wanted to get their master's degree as well. And then that's how I ended up with my master's degree, my MHA and my MBA. I just say it was supposed to happen. My decision to get my doctorate was very intentional. I knew at this point I've matured. I'm married. I knew I wanted more. I love teaching. Education is definitely my passion. So I know I wanted to teach in the academia world. And that's what actually led me to get my doctorate. And again, it was one of those things, it was a thought, but I had a really good coworker. Her name is Deidre. She was applying for her doctorate. I had looked into, and this is a good testament to people, don't get discouraged. I had looked into several DNP programs. I knew I wanted to get my doctorate, but many of them, which has changed recently, many of them require you to have your MSN,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So a lot of them that I looked into, the prerequisite was MSN. Well, I don't have an MSN. I have two master's degree, but they're not MSN. I have my
Right.
MHA and my MBA, so I were not eligible to apply. So I kind of already given up because I was like, I am not going back to school for a third master's in order to get doctorates. That's just insane. So I kind of just and I had put the goal on the side because it seemed unrealistic. I had talked to my coworker. She was my coworker at the time, Deidre, and I had mentioned it to her because she was telling me she wanted to go back for her doctorate. And I was like, "Hey, this is this. I probably won't be able to do it. It's just I can't see myself going back to school for a third master's." And I remember the day my office was downstairs. I was a director of education at the time, and her office was upstairs. She was a director of informatics. And I literally could hear her running down the stairs. I was like, what is going on? So she rushed into my office. She was like, I found our program. And she said she was listening to the informational for Northern Kentucky University. And they said, you must have a BSN, your master's could be in anything, and you can apply for your DNP. And I was like, no way. I've never heard of that. So that's how I end up in the DNP program and received my doctorate in nursing practice. Always wanted to do it. I love teaching. I think the DNP actually helped me along the way in many ways. Not only open the doors for me to be an academia professor, but it also teaches you business, right? It
Mhm.
also teaches you leadership. I was already a leader, but I think it also made me a better leader, learning all the information we learned in the DNP program.
Okay. So, so that would sound like a passion for you, and then an opportunity just opened up.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's funny that you went and got into grad school, not intentionally wanting to get into grad school, but the opportunity was there, presented itself, and you put your foot forward. It's kind of similar to how I got my graduate degree.
Yep.
I decided to take a parish nurse class, and I saw, oh, you could take it for graduate credit. Well, let me just use this as a test class because I was working full time as a supervisor on evening shift of the psych unit. And I said, I'll test to see if I go to school and work full time. And then the dean of the university, I had sat on a committee with her as a nursing student and was teaching the class. And she goes, why aren't you in grad school? And I
Mhm.
did the whole, oh, I don't want to take the GRE again. My scores are old, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, and I said, I want to get another student loan, blah, 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 blah. She said, well, you can get a scholarship and all this other stuff. She was really encouraging me. And so I had applied because I was going to get graduate credit for this class. I had applied for graduate school to get the graduate credit. So my application was already in. So I get a letter in the mail that says you've been provisionally accepted into the F&P program.
Nice.
Show up to class from the dean, and that's how I got into grad school.
Yeah. That's awesome. Sometimes we don't even know what our destiny is, and the doors open for us. And I look back in my life because I've had different stages of my life, and there's always been someone there that was my cheerleader for me and saw things in me that I didn't see. And so today, I always want to be that person. So I appreciate it, and I see where, coming from a teenage mom to where I'm at, but every stage I had someone being a cheerleader or a mentor or someone pushing me. So for me now, it's like my goal is to be that cheerleader. It's kind of giving back. So your dean obviously saw that in you and pushed you, and here you are.
Yeah, yeah. Never would have thought that I would go the path that I did, but I'm so glad that I did because
Yeah.
teaching was also one of those things I was interested in. So I ended up being a double major. So I got my MSN in nursing education, and then I changed tracks in my postmasters as a gerontological nurse practitioner because I discovered I really didn't want to work with pediatrics.
Yeah.
I thought maybe that'd be okay, but not really. I just really love working with older adults. That was always been my
Nice.
passion. So it worked out great for me. So how did you then, after, with all the things that you're doing, you're teaching at the university, you're working full time as an ER nurse. How did you get started in business?
Good question. So starting a business. So at the time when the idea came to me to open up a training center, I've been in several leadership positions throughout the Houston area, even in North Carolina. Um, and what I saw was a deficit where several of the nurses in a role, I saw several of the nurses coming out with a card that says,
Mm-hmm.
I'm ACLS certified, I'm whatever certified. But then when you see the performance in the unit, not that it's horrible, but the level of confidence wasn't there. A lot of our nurses depend on our physicians. You always hear them say, whatever the doctor order. And that's not wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But I want you to understand what you're doing, not just carry a card saying I'm certified. So, in my role at the time, I was the director of education, and a lot of people were complaining with the education that they were getting for certain certifications. And I heard and I agreed. Um, so I saw that deficit where, again, people were coming up with a card, but the level of confidence wasn't there. So I decided instead of being part of the problem, because I sounded off several times, hey, how do we fix this? How can we fix this? Um, and then I was always been an instructor in all the different certifications. And I'm like, I know I could teach this class way better than what's happening right now. So and I made a decision, and I think also sparked from being in school for my DNP, learning leadership and entrepreneurship there as well, all those skills. Instead of saying, how can I fix this for this one hospital, I decided that I can create my own training center and I can not only fix it for this one specific organization, but I can take my skills everywhere. So it's open to anyone, not just nurses. It's open to church members, community members. So that's how I was able to get the idea that I wanted to be able to use my skill because I love teaching. Education is my passion. But how do I use something I'm passionate about where I have found there's a problem and I can make the solution for it? Hence the creation of my business, Best Learning Solution.
I think that's amazing because there's a lot of nurses out there that have skills, they have a specialty in certain areas, and they don't think to improve on a process or meet a need in the marketplace or anything like that, and think that they have enough um, skill, not skill, but maybe enough experience in business to even think about monetizing what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, if you find something you're passionate about, that can fix the problem. And my whole thing is, if as a nurse, your passion should also improve patient outcomes. Um, you're on the right path. You just kind of figure out, how do I monitor. Nothing is, and I think too, what something you said that's brought to my brought something out of me. I think too, because as nurses, we love to care for people. um, we don't realize that it's okay to make money with what we do. We have
Yes.
that guilt of monetization. And nothing is wrong with that in making money. Yes, I would love to teach CPR to everyone for free, but I would also like to eat.
Yes. And pay for supplies.
Yes, yes. So nothing
Hmm.
is wrong with monetization. So I think that might be one of the setbacks for some nurses, where they say, I have this skill, but should I make money off of it? The hospitals are. They are 100% making money off of us when we're working for them. So why can't we
Yes.
make money for ourselves?
Amen. One of the things that I did early on, just to make extra cash as a broke college student, was become a CPR instructor.
Yes.
That was, and the funny thing is, I never even thought about it as a business model at that time. I just
Mhm.
had an opportunity to become a CPR instructor, and I worked for the hospital, and I would teach classes for the hospital, and they paid me. And then, because and then they would had community classes that none of the other instructors wanted to teach. So I
Right.
would borrow the equipment from the hospital, and I would go teach them, and I would get calls from doctors' offices, come train my staff, and I would just charge them, a nominal price to cover my, give me a little cash, cover my cards, and cover the rental fee for the equipment. And that's what I did for the first 3 years, not even thinking about it. So I've been a CPR instructor for about 30 years now.
Nice.
And I've never really given it up. I still do teach CPR. And during the pandemic, I was one of the only in this area trainers that was still doing in-person classes, which they needed because the hospital required it, or the travel agency required it, that they, because these nurses were traveling. And I'm like, well, I got to keep these nurses eligible to work. We need them out there in the field. We don't need them
You
sitting at
need
home
them.
because they don't have a CPR card.
Right. Right.
So I had adapted my classes and kept going. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So talk a little bit about your road of entrepreneurship. How did you develop your training center? Because there may be somebody listening out there that might be thinking about doing something similar.
Oh, okay. Happy to do that. So I do have a business partner. When the idea came to me, really good friend of mine, Selena, I brought the idea to her and I said, hey, this is what I'm thinking. I would love to do it. She's an amazing educator. Actually, we always joke, Selena and I, that we're sisters from different parents because we're so much alike. If you put her resume next to mine, we're very, very similar. So, and I asked her, I proposed it to her, and she was like, say less. She was on from the beginning, we knew we wanted to do it, but I always tell people, I'm an amazing nurse. I can save your life. I'm an amazing educator. I can teach anything. But when I started, I was an awful entrepreneur. I had no clue what I was doing to start a business. So for us, we grabbed our resources. As being both of us are DNP, we know that we can find resources for anything. In Houston, we have the SBDC, Small Business Department. I'm not sure what CSUN stands for, but there's a lot of resources out there for small businesses that are starting up that help you start up. So we joined that little website. They send us little information on how to do it. Um, it's super easy to get. So the first thing we did was get our LLC. People pay people to do the LLC. Don't do that. It is so easy. Don't pay anyone to do it. Just get online, look it up, form your LLC, determine your structure of how you want your organization. So for us, we're a partnership, and we did the LLC. So once you get your business, because before, opening a training center was just an idea. And I kind of dragged my feet for a while. But then once I got that paper saying best learning solution, this is a real business now. Getting that LLC for me was the first aha, like this is really happening. Um, I wish it had moved a little bit faster, but everything happens in the right time. And so, yes, so once you get your LLC, then you either, depending on funding, well, depending on your funds, so you start looking for funding or you use your personal funds, whatever you need to do, but there's funding out there for everything. So start looking at your funding, create your budget plan, your structure plan. We went back and forth. Do we just continue mobile and just start training and do offering classes at everyone's location, or do we open a brick and mortar? We went back and forth. We initially started with just mobile. I tell people it's not a hurry. Like take your time. Don't put yourself in debt, and then you regret what you're doing. You know, I don't know what the true statistics are, but I've always heard small businesses that last over 3 years, they're usually going to be successful after that. And sometimes those that are not successful within those 3 years is because they went too fast, too quick. So we started off initially mobile, just telling people word of mouth. I truly believe when you open a business, you have to establish trust and credibility. I will say one of the mistakes I always talk about that I make initially in when we first opened, we spent a significant amount of money on marketing. We thought if we could throw 7K, 10K into marketing, we're going to start getting all these clients. We didn't get any clients from that marketing investment. Where we started getting clients were is that trust. A lot of people knew us. They knew we were strong ER nurses because we both are. She has a military background as well. People know the quality of our work. Every time I get a new client or a new contract, I ask, "How did you hear about us?" And I just taught a lady, and she's like, "Oh, I have a bunch of travel nurses that need to come." And I asked her, "How did you hear about us?" And she said, "Facebook." I posted on Facebook, "Does anyone know any instructors that teach X, Y, and ACLS, BLS, PALS, and TNCC?" And she said, my name came up several times. So you want to have consistency and trust in whatever business you're doing. Don't get greedy and don't go too fast. But that key of, I can't say it enough, that trust and consistency in whatever you do is going to be your marketing. Um, doesn't Most of the time I go by LaToya. I feel that it doesn't matter if I'm Dr. LaToya, Dr. Lockett. Lockett is when I'm grading your paper for your DNP. But I want people to feel comfortable. So they hear LaToya is the instructor. Yes, she's great at what she does. She's passionate. I don't teach by fear. I believe in connecting with my students. So again, so whatever you do, I'll keep saying it is building trust with whatever your market is, whatever business adventure you're trying to decide. Your number one is form your LLC, get all your business plan, budget plans together, but then two, figure out your market and establish trust because the best marketing is literally word of mouth. Um, like I said, all the contracts I have, all the students I get, it's usually one, we look you up on Google and your Google reviews are amazing, or two, someone's told me about you.
That's wonderful. And you know what? That's a great piece of advice to maybe not make sure you don't go too fast. Make sure you dot all your I's and cross all your T's. Um, and then decide what type of business you want to go into. So I'm assuming you teach AHA, American Heart Association. Do you teach any other disciplines as a CPR instructor?
So I teach out the ENA courses as well, TNCC, which is a trauma nurse class, and ENPC, which is the emergency nursing pediatric class. We also teach a couple courses out of HSI, which we teach babysitter training class, which I actually have
Mm-hmm.
one later this evening, which is a fun class. You teach teenagers the
Mm-hmm.
business of babysitting. Some people think, oh, I'm going to be a babysitter, and then I just go to someone's house and babysit, but we actually talk about the business of being a babysitter, how to keep the kids safe. And then we throw in CPR in that. And then we also teach another class called wilderness training that
Hmm.
is pretty much geared to Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts before they go camping. It teaches them, it's almost like TNCC in the wilderness. It teaches you how to take care of injuries if you're out camping or hiking and you can't get to 911 immediately. What are things you can do to save a life? So those are the main courses, all the AHA courses and those as well. And then of
Okay,
course
yeah.
Southern League.
All right. So that's wonderful. So you developed this, and you're in Texas now, right?
Yes, I'm in Houston
In
area.
Houston. Okay.
Mhm.
So, I imagine that it's probably with all the things that happen, with the hurricanes and stuff like that can happen, that having that experience of teaching those wilderness courses are very important. You guys get hurricanes. I'm in the Midwest. We get tornadoes. We just had one not too long ago. So yeah, it's seeing that. So I was a Red Cross nurse, and so I taught American Heart and Red Cross at one time.
Mhm.
So yeah, I got rid of I stopped doing the Red Cross simply because I just couldn't keep up with the credentialing, and it was just too much
Right.
um, for me. But it's good that you just diversified your business, because that's another thing that I heard you started teaching CPR, but moved to other things to teach.
Yes. And then
So
we are
that.
now have a brick and mortar. So we actually have two locations now where
Mhm.
we're no longer coming to you, but we do both. We still are mobile if there's a organization that wants us to come to them. But we also have two locations, brick and mortar training centers.
Okay, awesome. That's wonderful. All right. And so I'm going to ask you this as we get into wrap up here.
Mhm.
Um, if you had a piece of advice for a budding entrepreneur, what would it be?
Hmm. If I had a piece of advice, hmm, I would say find something that you're interested in and that you love, so then it doesn't feel like work, because then
That
everything else falls into place. People hear my schedule and they say, "How do you do that?" And I honestly say, I don't know. It doesn't feel like work. I love taking care of patients and I love running my business. So it's not work.
hmm And then you still teach. No, let's not forget that part.
And I still teach like that. Well, maybe that's a little bit of work. No, I'm just kidding.
I've taught at the academic side too, so I know what you're saying.
I love it though. I do love it. Let me just say that. But yes.
Yes, yes. Look, there are days when you love it, and there's days where you just rather just go home and maybe have a cool drink. Um, yeah, I still practice clinically as well, so I still see patients.
Yes.
So tell me, how would if any of our listeners wanted to get in touch with you, how would they get in touch with you?
The best way is our website, which is www.bestlearningsolution.com. And I will say there's no S after solution. We found that a lot of people like to put bestlearningsolutions.com,
Mhm.
but it's bestlearningsolution.com, no S, because we're the only solution.
Yeah.
There's only
Well,
one.
you know what? Buy that other domain name and just redirect it to your website.
Oh, that's a good idea. See?
Hmm.
I was learning. I was learning.
Yep, yep.
But yeah, that's the easiest way. And then we're also on Facebook and Instagram, and the same thing, Best Learning Solution, BLS.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, I want to thank you for your time. It's been such a great pleasure. Um, and yeah, this has been great. And I just have many, many more questions. I'll probably ask you after the show. But
Sure.
if anyone wants to get a hold of Dr. Lockett, again, that's bestlearningsolution.com. And this will be added to your show notes, so you'll have an opportunity to look her up on Facebook and Instagram and other places where her social media is. I want to thank you for tuning in to the Nurse Shark Academy show. If you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're notified when our new episodes become live. Follow us on our channel and look at our other podcast interviews and some of our leadership lessons and conversations that we have. If you're listening to us on through Podbean or wherever you get your podcast, leave us a like and a comment. We so greatly appreciate it. Share this episode so that other nurses can hear about entrepreneurship. We want to thank you for your time, Dr. Lockett, and bye bye for now.
Thank you for having me.
Ready to turn your nursing skills into a thriving business? At the Nurse Shark Academy, we give you expert strategies, real startup guidance, and the support to go from employee to empowered entrepreneur. Join us and build the nurse-owned business of your dreams. Start today and join us at the nursesharkacademy.biz. Thank you for listening to the Nurse Shark Academy show wherever you get your podcasts or watching us on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you'll know when all of our episodes come out. If you want further information, you can contact us on the nursesharkacademy.biz.